How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Paradigm Shift. Today, we talk about breaking down our endeavors into where we want to see growth and outsized returns, and then on the flip side, where we want to maintain our intensity and consistency. So, let's get started by discussing how to categorize aspects in your day to day and better understand how our endeavors can really complement each other rather than hinder one another.
Kicking off today's discussion, we got the quote of the day, and it reads, "It is better to be hated for who you are than to be loved for someone you're not." I said it once, and I'll say it again. Conformity is cowardice. Do not conform to whatever it is within this world. Be unique, be your own person, and strive for greatness. Now, in terms of what we're talking about for today, I actually heard something quite recently, and I've been starting to embody this a little bit. Split your days into 3 categories, and this is going to help for where you want to see growth and where you just want things to be a bit more continuous. Your first part of your day should be from when you wake up till about noon. Then you're going to have a second part around 1 o'clock to maybe around 5, and then from 5 until the time you go to bed. There are 24 hours in a day, but if you see and envision your day like this, you really have 3 parts of your days where you can cultivate so many wins in between. Before you do that, I would recommend you figure out what it is you are obsessed with. Whatever pursuit that is, plan your day around that because you want to see growth as much as you can within that subject. And then for other parts of your life, you kind of just want those to be continuous things and seek a balance in those. A big red flag I see in people is they try and have everything fall into 2 categories of obsession and growth and then a continuum. The reality is that creates a gray area. And that gray area is when something goes wrong, you're not obsessed enough to work through it. So instead you try and work around it. And the whole continuum thing kind of falls apart. And that's where people get in over your head. That's why you need to introspect and find out what it is you are obsessed with, because then you will be willing to work through that. And then in that, work those through your 3 parts of your day.
That's a really good and profound piece of advice. And I think sometimes it can be a little scary for people to think about what do they want to cross off, for example. But it's nothing you're really crossing off. You're just better managing your time, energy, and effort. Those 3 words will always be heavily affiliated with one another. But that's very key in this situation. You don't want to give everything your best effort and the most amount of time because then they start to conflict with one another. So that's why some level of overall balance to where things fit in your day, that is what's most important. You don't want to go through things in an absolute rush. And you definitely do, if you don't already know, want to introspect and try to better figure out where you should be looking for outsized returns. And this can change on a month to month basis or within a certain part of a year. You don't have to stick with this for the rest of your life. It's not that much of a commitment. It's more of a time management, effort management skill that you can implement today to help you throughout the rest or the rest of the year or for the next couple of months. And being someone in college, my semesters are very different from one another. My summer is very different than when I am at school. Same thing with anytime I'm on break. So I think about what is the thing or the couple of things that I really want to prioritize, really get ahead on. Because some of these things are achievements or maybe courses or something that have an end to them. Other things are continuous and perpetual. And something that's a good example of that would be training. I am never looking to be done with training after a certain point. It's just something that I want to implement every single day. And as of right now, the most important thing is for me to be continuous and consistent with it. So I'm not really looking for outsized returns in the gym or anything like that. Maybe for some people, because they haven't been working out every single day or they're just getting into working out, then committing more days to going to the gym, that would be looking for an outsized return. But because of the level that I'm at, not to say I'm better or worse than anyone, but I currently go most weeks 6 times a week. And then on top of that, there's jujitsu, which I do usually at night. And my goal with all of those things is just to keep doing it. And that's a very important thing. So split the categories that you could think of. Anything that you do or looking forward to do, want to accomplish, into two categories. One of them, you look more for consistency and maintenance. And then the other category, you want to find more growth. You want an outsized return. And that's where the dedication and the deliberate practice, the studying, the things you don't want to do, that's when you have to do them the most. That's when they matter the most because it's not really anything special that you do. It's just a continuous work that you get done that will compound, as we've talked about, positively in your favor to deliver you those outsized returns.
A piece of advice I have, and this is very much opinionated, is that balance is a big fallacy. If you strive to achieve balance in your life, everything's just going to be average. That's why you need to be obsessed with a couple of things in your life. For me, I go to the gym right when I wake up. Yes, I absolutely love the gym, but I'm not obsessed with it enough where I want to have that be the focal point of my day. If I did that, instead of working out at 5 a.m., I would probably work out around dinner time. So I have 1 to 2 meals in me. I have more energy. But again, that's not my obsession in life. I have a few obsessions and I work those in immediately after the gym and throughout those other two parts of my day. And that avoids any sort of balance in my life because that's at the top of my priority list. So I would recommend you guys take some time, and this might not come to you right away, but take time to really write down what it is you love, what it is you're good at, and then maybe something that you enjoy doing, and almost create like a Venn diagram and compare and contrast and start working those into each part of your day. I used to see sleep as fuel for the whole day. Now I see sleep as a reward for working hard enough. Instead, the fuel that I use is food. After my first block, I get to eat food, and that's going to fuel me for my second. Same thing for second to third, and I eat dinner quite early, so that way my reward is sleep, and you know that you've done enough in your day when you're excited to go to bed before 8, 9, 10 p.m., earlier in the hours of the night. Another piece of advice that I have is to start tracking your inputs for whatever it is that you're obsessed with. Don't try and just focus on the goal and how close you are to that, but instead focus on the work that you're putting in to get to that goal. If it's a business related endeavor, don't track how close you are to wherever your business wants to go. Tracks the emails you're sending, the work you're doing, the calls you're making. Because when you double down on those, your growth is going to skyrocket and your value is going to go up, as opposed to focusing on the goal, realizing how far away that might be, and that creates uncertainty. And then who knows, maybe you'll start to snowball effect and kind of go in the opposite direction.
I think that's really good advice in terms of tracking your inputs. A lot of times people just think about how much time they put into like their job, for example, because some people are on payroll, right? So you're clocking in like a 9 to 5 or whatever it is, or whether you're part time, whatever it is. A lot of people think of that in just an hourly sense. And that is great for work, but you want to also apply that to other aspects in your life. And I've heard people in school, especially teachers and professors, talk about how many hours outside of the classroom you should probably be dedicating to this class. And yeah, that encompasses homework and like studying and quizzes or any other assignments. But if you ever took the time to track how much of an input you really give into that endeavor, you would start to better analyze if you're even doing it right, if you're like where you can be more efficient. And that's why I'm a very big numbers fiend, because when you have the numbers, it's easier to tell the story, at least in my opinion. So that's something I would definitely recommend for people to first start off with like how many hours are you dedicating to other things in your life? The places where you want outsized returns, you need to be putting in an outsized input, and that in this sense would be number of hours. Even if your day is almost over, I think that if you have the time to, it is still important to look over the day that you just went through and time block and make sure everything's accurate, because you don't have to do this for the rest of your life, but it's just for right now, or for that time at the end of the week when you're able to see all of the time that you spent doing many different things and understanding where you went, like what was good, where you went well, and where you went wrong. And with that, you have given yourself the most accurate data that you have to improve your own situation and figure out where and when you can do better. So this is something that I would most definitely recommend for anyone out here who's listening, because time is something that you spend on literally anything. And in terms of other inputs, I think Sean is also spot on. Thinking about the numbers of calls that you're making, the other assignments that you're doing, the extra work that you're putting on top, a lot of it, people think instantly hours. And yeah, that's important, but we're not always the most efficient at every single hour of the day or for every hour that we dedicate. But hours is looking at time as the metric here is definitely a very strong way to start. But with time, and as things become more complex, as your endeavors become more evolved and more intricate, I would start to look at other metrics as well on top of the time, so that you can understand, are you really growing in all of these other aspects? Because, or I guess mini aspects, because in order to get outsized returns, you need outsized inputs. And if you have a variety of inputs, you should be working across all of those inputs. So it's best understand to best to understand what you're trying to get to, what you're trying to get, and then seeing what you have to do to get there. And most of the time, there's many things that you have to do. So try to find maximum efficiency, or at least get close to it, across all of those inputs.
Here's something for you listening out there. The reason you track your inputs is to see growth. And another reason for that is because you're building evidence. If you come to me, Michael, or go to anyone else and say, this is what I do, and then our first question is going to be, okay, what backs that up? If you don't have the inputs, the evidence, the work to back that up, you're simply delusional. That's why it's so important to have that drive, discipline, and obsession with whatever it is your pursuit is. And again, that can change with time. That's why it's so important to always be on top of yourself and introspect, journal, talk, and chase dreams until they become a reality. Another piece of advice, and probably my last piece of advice for today, is to learn to be present in the moment. And what I mean by this is when you schedule in those work blocks for something business related, academic related, fitness related, don't go and be on your phone or do something else within that time, because that shows that whatever it is you're doing is more important than what you set out to originally do. Say you're obsessed with academics and you want to have a 4.0 for the semester, and you schedule in a 30-minute work block, and then 5 minutes in, you go on your phone. You're lying to yourself. A, you don't care enough, and B, your phone is more important, and that short-term dopamine is more important than your 4.0 that will come months down the line. Effort goes unnoticed, and people get scared away by that. But you really have to realize that you need to double down on your inputs and effort if you want to see growth. And with that said, thank you for tuning into this episode of The Paradigm Shift. We hope you've gained a better understanding of today's topic, as well as used some of our stories and advice to launch you into a healthier lifestyle. Be sure to tune into next episode, where we will continue to discuss other topics relating to health, lifestyle, and last but not least, self-improvement. Stay mindful.